Good morning. If you're visiting with us today, I hope that you'll stick around a little afterwards and let's get to know you. Hope also you'll grab one of the guest cards on the pew in front of you, fill it out so we can send you a thank you note for having come today. This morning is one of those rare times, once a year days, where some of us forgot before we went to bed that right before I went to bed last night, I thought, oh my, I meant to go to bed an hour ago so I could get more sleep. I would be more rested. And so if I fall asleep, somebody wake me up. And if you want me to do the same for you, I'll do the same for you. But as we look at this today, we're beginning a 3-week series from the book of Luke, chapter 6, beginning with verse 27, about some foundational parts of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And these are significant passages because we are in a war against the devil, the forces of evil, the principalities, as the Bible calls them in various places. This last week on Tuesday over in Independence, Missouri, and on Friday morning in Little Rock, I spoke on the subject of spiritual warfare and how one of the ways in which we can fight against the forces of evil. And one of the concepts that I set out is that just as soldiers gain confidence through practice with their equipment and their weapons, through maintenance of their equipment and their weapons, learning in some cases to disassemble and put back together the weapons with their eyes closed or blindfolded. They do that so that when they're under stress, when they're under attack, that they will be able to respond without thinking about it, without as much effort. So they will know what they have to do, what precisely they have to do, and how efficiently to do it. And part of that process of preparation includes getting rid of steps in the process they don't need to do. Part of it includes getting rid of distractions. So that while you're under heavy fire, you're probably not going to be texting. Checking the score. And if you watch the movie Saving Private Ryan, jumping up and saying, that was close. But ridding yourself of the distractions that can hinder you. I want to ask some questions this morning, and I want you to think about it. What is it that makes you the most upset when you think you might lose it? And when I say lose it, I'm not talking about losing your temper. I'm talking about I remember when I was a child, one of the deacons of the congregation where my father was preaching, after a Wednesday night service, went out to the parking lot. And during the service, someone had stolen his car. That would be an example. Or there might be a privilege you have that you really, really cherish and you hold dear. And if someone told you, you can't do that anymore. Or an organization to which you belong, that you love being a member of that organization, and suddenly you're told you're expelled. You're no longer welcome here. What is it that makes you most angry when you think that you might lose it? Either this possession or this thing that you enjoy doing. And when does culture determine your priorities? That's when you hear people say things like, I know it's not really right, but everybody does it. Or, it may not be the Christian thing to do, but if you don't do it, you're on the wrong side of history. When does culture determine what you think is right? And if you read the Bible and you read it carefully and you think about following Jesus and how you're making choices in your life, how does Jesus challenge your priorities? Do you ever read the Bible and think and come across a passage where Jesus says something and you think, Jesus, I really wish you hadn't said that. Couldn't you have said this? That would not have challenged me. How does Jesus challenge your priorities? In the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there's this ring. Looks a lot like a wedding ring in the movie. There's this ring. And this ring has powers. And people covet this, especially Gollum. Smeagol, I think he calls himself. And he says, my precious. And he's got to have, he wants so badly, his precious. And there are other characters within the storyline who also, when they come in contact with the ring themselves, begin to develop that attachment. And also others begin to notice that they are diminished by their contact with the ring. So that as Gollum becomes this shriveled up creature, you get the sense when other characters begin to interact with the ring and they begin to be weakened because of their contact and their attachment and their enslavement to the ring, that Gollum perhaps did not always look that way. That he may have been more vibrant, a more attractive creature. He didn't want to let go of his precious. And neither did others. And sometimes we don't want to let go of our precious either. Whatever or whoever it may be. We look at this passage in Romans chapter 6. Think a little bit about. Sometimes we talk about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Actually, we talk about the Sermon on the Mount a good amount. Back in Matthew chapters 5 through 7. We don't talk as often about what's in Luke chapter 6, the Sermon on the Plain, which has some of the same content, but it's different in some ways. And the background definitely is different. Jesus isn't on a mountain. He's on a plain speaking to his disciples. And he doesn't say, blessed are the poor in spirit. He says, blessed are the poor. Subtle differences like that. But that blessed is the poor is germane because these sermons, Jesus' whole ministry occurs while his people and their land in which they live are occupied by a foreign military force. And they're ruled by a distant government that is not theirs, and to which they do not elect representatives. Also germane to this passage are the Old Testament laws about lending for the Jewish people. As they were lend money to one another. They were not to charge interest to one another. And after every 7 years, they were to forgive the debts that had not been repaid. And the purpose of this was to maintain a sense of prosperity among the people of God. And an awareness of the needs of others and caring for others. And also in the background in this passage, some of us have served and we have been the foreign occupying military force. And we have recognized that not everybody was happy we were there. To put it mildly. Some people did not like us, even though they had never met us and did not realize what a charming person that Alex was or that Teresa was. They just made up their mind because they were American soldiers that they were worthy objects of God's wrath. And if God wasn't going to do it, they would do it for him. They were prejudiced against those soldiers and against each other because of the differences within their culture, allegiances within clans, differences of dress, differences of faithfulness and religion, deep-seated prejudices that led sometimes to hatred and violence. It's in a context like that that Jesus says, but I say to you who hear, are you listening? I say to you who hear, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. And you're out in the crowd and you go, Jesus, did you really say what I think you just said? You want me to love that Roman soldier? I'm a zealot. I'm a revolutionary freedom fighter. You want me to love that Roman soldier? You want me to like that Sadducee who's not even a good Jew in my opinion? You want me to... Just this last week I got beaten in the road by a soldier. You want me to pray for him? You want me to bless people who curse me. And if I know that my neighbor hates me with all his soul, you want me to go over and mow his yard. You want me to do good to him. To the one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the others also. And from the one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. There were limits under Roman law what the soldiers could do in terms of confiscating things that they might need for their mission. They could ask someone to go with them and carry stuff for them for a certain distance. And they could ask for certain kinds of clothing but not others. But Jesus said, how would you feel? Sometimes in movies, television programs, and perhaps a few have experienced this, police officer will flash the badge and say, I need your car. Generally not always the most welcome words. And if someone's asking you to stop you on the street and says you're walking, I need you to carry this for a mile. I've got places to be, things to do. Jesus says, go the extra mile. He doesn't advocate a passive approach. He doesn't say just grin and bear it. He says be proactive. The soldier can't ask you to go an extra mile. Volunteer to do it. If he says, I need your coat. I need your coat. Say, okay, take my shirt too. One of the psychological aspects of what he's talking about here is that while this can perhaps win friends and influence people to think well of you, it might also irritate some people too. Because they might feel like you're being what we might call a little snarky. Give to everyone who begs from, now he goes farther. Give to everyone who begs from you, and from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. But I've got to fight for my rights. I've got to defend my possessions. I've got to resist. Jesus says that there are times when the non-violent resistance may be more powerful. Do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Those words are familiar. We remember them from the Sermon on the Mount as well. And this is one of the things I didn't mention about the Sermon on the Mount and the Sermon on the Plain. Some people try to say, it's just the same sermon. But I don't think so. I think I mentioned earlier, I spoke about spiritual warfare in two different places this last week. And they were two very different talks. One was 35 minutes and the other one was 10 minutes. I know that's hard to believe. The 10-minute talk there, but I did it. And parts of the 10-minute were not even included in the 35-minute talk. It's just like the Sermon on the Mount and the Sermon on the Plain. Same subject, different places, different audience, different needs. As you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. That is different isn't it, than saying, do to others before they do to you. Or as you are afraid that others are going to do to you, do it to them before they can do it to you. No. As you wish people would do to you, that's how you treat them. Now, how would the world be different if you treated people the way you wish they would treat you? And that's a little more complicated than it seems. Because when I was trying to play football in high school, there may have been a little part of me that wished the coach would be easy on me and not make me run extra sprints or run an extra lap after practice or go do one-on-ones at 135 pounds against a 205-pound player. But I also recognize when he forced me to do those things that I wanted him to. Because they were going to make me a better player. As you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Now, there are some people that's easy to do it with. Your best friend. It's really easy to do to them as you want them to do to you. But then there's that guy you don't like. That woman you just, frankly, don't trust. How do you treat them well? Well, everybody likes the people who like them, usually. That's not that hard to do. And Jesus says that really doesn't benefit you. That doesn't help you develop as God's person. Because everybody does that. And then talking, I'm sure nobody's, I'm going to be facetious here. I'm going to ask it. Have you ever done this? You're trying to decide what Christmas presents to buy people. Well, what do you think they're going to give us? Well, last year they gave us so-and-so. Okay, since they gave us so-and-so last year, we need to spend about that much on them this year. Because they'll probably do that again this year. Jesus says, no. Don't just lend to people if they'll give back to you or if they'll pay you interest. Don't just give to the people who will give back to you. Love your enemies, do good, and lend expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for He is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. God is our mentor here. He's our example. We each, you know how you are. I know how I am. Do I want God to treat me the way I treat other people? In the end. Do I want Him to give me like I've given Him? When we talk about letting go of the precious, I may have things I can't let go of. Gotta have my rights. I have the right to do that, the right to choose that. You can't take that away from me. But what if I do? And prejudices. Sometimes people don't like people because of the way they look or the accent with which they speak. or because we're jealous that we can't speak their language. No, we wish they would speak ours. I once had a shopkeeper in Germany refuse to sell roses to me unless I ordered in German. Because it was her country, after all. Jesus says, be merciful even as your Father is merciful. So Jesus challenges us. He challenges our attachment to what we consider our precious. He calls us to expand our circle of relationship, to realize that the people we think we hate are God's creation too. And if the image of God is in those people somewhere, we may have to look really hard to find it. But it's there. And Jesus calls on us, on you, on me, to in each thing we do, in each place we go, to just as He showed who God was, for us to show who Jesus is and who God is. So our question is, will you let go? Will I let go of our precious? Will we give it all to Jesus? Turn it over to Him. If today you need to say, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, you need to say, hey, I've done all this bad stuff I will do behind. I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to be baptized today so that God will forgive my sins and add me to His church. Or as a Christian, you're like God there. And you've got your precious, and you know what your precious is, but you know you've got to let go of it, but it's too hard, and you need some prayer here. You need some help from your brothers and sisters to do that. Let us know today. Let us help you while we stand.